Hello and welcome to this video. So here I want to talk about some of the big tech companies: Tesla, Apple, Microsoft, Nvidia, so forth and so on. Now, last week obviously was brutal for Tesla. So this is the Tesla weekly chart. So it was down. It was down over 15%, and you can see that big red candle that it printed. If I look at the structure, um, you know, since forming this low, Tesla was making series of higher lows, weekly higher lows. These are, but that sequence has been breached. This candle closed slightly below this low. So the sequence of higher lows is no longer valid. In fact, what we now have a lower high, a weekly lower high. So this definitely has changed the structure. If I look at the bring in the moving average, you'll see that Tesla stock was above the weekly 20 and 50 moving averages, so it's below those moving averages. RSI has now closed underneath the 50 level. This is a very important level from it has closed underneath those levels. So definitely technical damage has been done. So it needs some time to repair them. So let's look at some of the levels, that we should be paying attention to. So I'm just going to go here, right here. Okay, so these are my levels that I'm watching on Tesla. Right, so you can see them. So right now, this is where we are, and it is basically at the same level at this low, which is from August of this year. Now, obviously, it has fallen, quite sharply from 260, and it's reasonable to expect some kind of an oversold bounce. So, if we have a bounce, what are levels we should be paying attention to? This is an important level right here. You can see that this low right here. This is 235. This is 235. But before that, this area could also be problematic, which is around 224. So these would be the two levels I'm watching on the upside, and obviously there is a gap. I'm not sure that the gap is filled. So those would be the two levels I'm watching. If you're considering short position, so it would be this zone where I would be interested in looking to go short on Tesla. On the downside, the target would be this one, which is around 190, and there is an interim level which is around 200. So why this level? That's because Tesla has traded in this zone before breaking to the downside. So if you take this distance, which is equal to this distance, which is where we are right now, and then the same distance if you apply, that gives you the 190 level. So I wouldn't look to short right here because it's quite oversold. Look at the RSI; it's way. I'm looking at a 2 hour here. Ideally, you want to see something like this and then expect, something like this. So based on the daily, weekly chart pattern, it does indicate that there is more weakness on the downside. But I would wait for some kind of a rebound, and these would be the two areas I would be watching. So that's Tesla. If I look at Microsoft next, so I'm going to look at the weekly chart from a trend analysis point of view, and then I'll look at the hourly chart just to get the levels. So this is Apple. So you can see that Apple has a weekly downtrend right here, which is it's finding it very difficult to overcome this level. Currently, it's trapped in between the weekly 20 and 50 EMA. I would say overall the trend is sort of neutral. RSI, you can see that it's around the 50 level. It dips under the 50 sometimes and then reclaims. To me, this is more like a neutral position. Yes, it is moving lower, but again, it's still holding on to the substantial gain right here. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily look to go long right here because I can clearly see it's gradually moving lower. But this is one of the better technology companies. There's a wide following in the market, So I would be cautious to go short at the moment. Long is also risky because if you look at MACD is moving lower. If it closes underneath the 50, there could be more to the downside. Right. So let's have a look at some of the levels and see, what levels we should be paying attention to. So let's look at the 2-hour chart of Apple. Now, this area right here, from here to here, represents last month's trading range. So this was the high from last month, and this is the low from last month. So, these levels are based on that range. So this is where we are right now. This is the 173 level. Now, on the upside, I've got this is one level which is going to be some sort of resistance, which is around 179, and then obviously the previous swing high, and then this would be the next one, which is around 184 and a half. Now, on the downside, this is a very important level. This is last month's low. This is around 167.50. So if it goes underneath that level, then obviously, we have to think about 165. But I'm watching to see if it's able to hold this level. So on the downside, I'm watching this level, 167.50, and on the upside, I'm watching this level, which is around 179, and then the previous swing high, 182. So those would be the levels I'm watching on Apple. Now, Apple doesn't report earnings next week. It reports earnings the following week. So next up, let's look at Microsoft. Microsoft, I would say, among the big tech companies, it's holding up okay for the time being. This is a weekly chart of Microsoft. You can kind of see it's going sideways. So it's trapped in this zone. It's still above the weekly moving averages. The RSI is above 50. So I'm not seeing any problem with Microsoft. I wouldn't be looking to go short on Microsoft. I mean, I wouldn't be looking to go long as well. Now Microsoft reports earnings on Tuesday, so you want to be careful ahead of this earnings. Maybe if that reaction is negative, then we could see a big move to the downside. On the other hand, if the reaction is positive, maybe it takes out this level. So in terms of levels, let's look at Microsoft from an hourly perspective. All right, so again, this was the last month's high, and this is the last month's low. This is the midpoint of last month. This is a very important level right here. So this is the level which I'm watching as a near-term support. This is around 325. You can see that it got rejected at this level. So this would be the near-term resistance, 337, and then this level right here, 341, which is basically last month's high. So midpoint is a very important. If midpoint gets breached, then these other levels come in all the way down to here. So this would be an important level, which is around 317. In between this level and this level, there is a minor level right here, because you can see there was a swing high right here, and the low, last month's low, obviously very, very important, which is around 309. But before we get to that level, it needs to get through quite a bit of support right here. So watch the midpoint of the last month's range, which is around 325. If 325 is breached, then all these other levels come into play. So that's Microsoft. Let's look at Nvidia. So this is Nvidia. So Nvidia is on a weekly basis beginning to form a kind of a head and shoulder pattern right here. You could basically draw the neckline to be, my drawing is not good. You can say that maybe it's sitting right at the neckline right here. So if you draw like this way, so it's sitting right at the neckline. For the first time, it has closed just underneath its weekly 20 EMA, which is this line right here. I would basically say that the pattern looks like it is looking weak because from a structural point of view, you can say that it's beginning to form a weekly lower high. But RSI still hasn't closed underneath the 50. So overall, the momentum indicator is still okay. MACD is beginning to move lower, but it's above the zero line. So I would watch. I would watch. This one does look like it wants to go lower, but we need some confirmation. Before that. So let's have a look at some of the levels to see what levels we should be. From a weekly perspective, this is an important level, the weekly 50 EMA, which is still way below, it's around 344. But before that, there are all sorts of other levels that we need to consider. So let's have a look at the levels on an hourly basis. Right, okay, so these are the levels. So again, you take a look at the last month's high and last month's low, and the levels are based on that. You can see that this was the 3/4 of the last month's range. Meaning, if you take the range and break it into 4 equal parts, this was the 3/4 of this range. And that's where we see the rejection. So obviously that's a very important level, 480. This was the halfway mark, and then you can see that there was a gap down. And then this is the 1/4 mark. You can see the previous resistance was at this level. And then right now we're at the last month's low. So this is a very important level, because if it goes underneath for the month, it would be establishing a lower low. And it's something that it hasn't done so for a long time. So if I show you the monthly chart, you'll know what I'm talking about. Let me get rid of this. So if I go, right, so if you look at the monthly chart right here, see, this was the low, and right now we are right there. So if it goes underneath that level and closes underneath that level, from a month on a monthly basis, it will be forming a lower low. You can see that there was a rejection right here. This is the 480 level that that I was talking about on my hourly chart right here. So this is a very important level. I would expect there would be some sort of a fight right here. So let's talk about the levels. If there is a rebound, because it's quite oversold, obviously this level right here, which is around 430, is going to be an important level. But before that, you can also there's also another level which is halfway between these two. So if you draw like a parallel channel in between these two, you can see how this level was held and then bounced off this level. So this level would also act as an area of resistance. But 430 would be a big one right here. And above that, obviously, you'll have this and then that level. On the downside, what are some of the levels? On the downside, next downside would be this level right here, which is around 390. This is around 390 with 400. 400 is a psychological level, so 400 would also be, and so forth and so on. I haven't drawn the other levels. I want to take it one step at a time. So if this level 410 gets breached, I would be looking around 390 with an interim level around 400. And if there is a bounce, 432 or 430, this level, which is around 432, would be an important level because there was a rejection right here this week. So those would be the levels to keep an eye on Nvidia. But overall, it looks kind of toppish at the moment, with a weekly lower high in place, and for the first time, it also closed underneath the weekly 20 EMA. So it's looking a little bit weak, but RSI hasn't closed underneath the weekly 50, so that's why you want to be careful. Once that happens, that's when you see the big decline. But it hasn't happened so far. It's entirely possible that RSI comes to the weekly 50 level and finds support. So we'll see how the stock reacts when it gets there, but it hasn't done so at this point. So watch those levels for Nvidia. All right, what about Meta? So Meta reports earnings next Wednesday. So be very, very careful with Meta. Because there could be big swing in the market. You see, the market's mood is not good. So even if there's a good earnings, it's entirely possible that the reaction could be negative. But overall, you can see that it still has a positive looking structure. The question is this forming a pattern like this way? We don't know, but it's something to keep an eye on. But at least at the moment, the weekly pattern still looks fine. You can see that RSI is still holding above the 50 level. The price is above these two moving averages, which have they're already moving higher. With respect to the other stocks, they've either closed underneath the moving averages like Tesla. Apple is somewhere in between those two moving averages. Microsoft is above their moving average. So this is one of the better looking chart. But watch what happens on after the market closes on Wednesday. Overall it looks on a weekly basis it looks fine, but what happens, how it resolve this range on a weekly basis. Now if we look at the hourly basis to see what sort of levels we should be considering, so here is Meta. Again, you look at the monthly range, which is right here, and then this range. You can see that it rallied and then pulled back, and then on an hourly basis you see that lower high is being put on, and this was an important level. Sorry, this is not the high, monthly high. Monthly high is actually this one. I stand corrected. This was the monthly high and this is the monthly low. What happened was that it rallied above the previous month's high, but now came underneath the monthly, underneath that range. Let me show you the monthly chart of Meta so you can see. So what had happened was that, see this monthly candle, so it had traded before above the previous month. So this is the previous month's, but then now it's come back inside the range. That's basically what I'm trying to say. So this is the monthly range from here to here. It had gone way above the monthly and then pulled back to the monthly high right here, and then it rose, and then so it's now making an hourly lower high, so something to keep an eye on. So if there is a bounce, 320 would be a important level. So it is entirely possible that it does a lower high at the moment. And it's formed a lower low. So 320, if this level gets breached, so let me remove those. If this level is breached, 306, next level would be around 399. There's quite a bit of interaction at around 300. There's a lot of interest, spent a lot of time at this level. So this is an important zone. And this is also halfway in between last month's trading range. So this is an important level. If this level is breached, then this would be the next target. Obviously there'll be another level in between, so this would be the level to watch. But you can clearly see on an hourly basis we're beginning to see some lower highs coming in. So watch 320 on the upside. Obviously this level will also play a role because this was the previous swing low. So if it tries to rebound, this would be one first area of resistance, and then the 320 which basically is where the lower high comes in, and 300 would be an important support level. All right, so that's Meta. Next up is Amazon. So let's have a look at Amazon on a weekly basis and see what can we see. So Amazon is also beginning to kind of look weakish, since rising to this level. It had a big fall, and obviously that has to do with what's happening in the overall market. The technology stocks are weak at the moment, so Amazon is not going to be immune to that. So at the moment you can see that it's trapped in between the weekly 20 and 50. RSI has closed slightly below the 50, so I'm beginning to see some weakness creeping in. So if it closes underneath this weekly 50, which is around 122.50, what you don't want to see is the price underneath these two moving averages, because you can see that when price is above those moving averages, you see good things happen to price, but once it closes underneath those moving averages, they tend to act as a resistance, and it starts to establish a downtrend. So obviously you want it to reclaim this moving average, and you want it to be trading here. You don't want it underneath these two moving averages. All right, so let's have a look at the levels, what levels we should be watching Amazon. Right, okay, so Amazon, so this is the last month's range. This is the high and this is the low. You can see that the midpoint of this range was a problem right here. Um, that's where the resistance was. And then right now it's in the lower half of the last month's range. And it's now fallen below the one. It's now getting close to the monthly low. So this would be an important level. So this is around 123. So this would be an important level I'm watching. If there is any rebound, first level to watch is this one, which is around 129, and obviously 134.50. But before that, we could have a lower high. If there is a rebound, we could have a lower high, which would be in between these two levels. So let's call it around 131. So if there is a rebound, watch this level right here, 129, and then around 132. I'm not sure that it gets up there, but we'll see. Now, Amazon reports earnings on Thursday, so a lot of these analysis could change. But at least before that, watch this level. This is the monthly low, so this is an important level, 123. So those would be the levels I'm watching on Amazon. Let's look at Google. So Google has a good-looking weekly chart. You can see that it's gradually moving higher. The weekly 20 and 50 EMAs, they're also moving higher. So, this is, I'm not seeing any technical breakdown here. And RSI is above 50, MACD is above the zero line. So this is looking, this is looking good. But this doesn't mean that it cannot pull back and retest. If the overall technology sector remains weak, then obviously, it can't keep going up. The other thing is Google reports earnings next Tuesday. So again, there could be a reaction. Market's mood is not very good at the moment with respect to technology. So even if they report good earnings, if they don't provide any kind of positive guidance, things could change. So let's have a look at the levels and see what levels we should be looking out for on Google. So you can see that these two levels are last month's low. So it had traded above last month's high, but hasn't been able to hold on to it. It's now come back inside last month's range. And you can see on an hourly basis, we're beginning to see lower high beginning to form. So if there is any rebound, I would expect at least a problem at this level 140. Now, obviously, it reports earnings on Tuesday, so some of this, may not be relevant because on Wednesday there could be a big move one way or the other. I just wanted to make that clear. But in terms of levels, this is an important level. This is the midpoint of last month's range, right? So this level is around 134. So I would expect there to be some kind of a support right here. If it goes underneath the midpoint, then obviously the low comes into play. So those would be the levels. I'm watching this level. I'm watching this level right here, which is last month's low, and then there would be one which is in between these two levels. So let's call it around 131.50. And on the upside, I think 140 is going to be a problem area because you can clearly see that on an hourly basis. This is basically an ideal location for a lower high. Unless the earnings, comes in very strong, then and it takes out this level, then obviously we'll have to consider levels on the upside. But I'll just, I'll update those levels when that happens. But at least based on the information I have, I'm watching this level and see how the stock reacts. So that's Google. Next up is Netflix. Let's look at Netflix. Reported very strong earnings. There was a big positive reaction. Let's see what we can learn from Netflix. And I mean, Netflix stock was looking weak because you can see since reaching a high of this level, it started to make lower lows. In fact, it had closed underneath the weekly 20 and 50 EMA, and then this week happened, and stock was up almost over 12%. So it put up this big green candle. Now, if I look at the levels, I want to see if this is going to be a bullish thing. Then I want to see Netflix close above this level, which is around 413, because you can see this area was a previous resistance, this area was a previous support level. You can see that it came close to it. So I want to see if this is going to be a real beginning of a move to the upside. Then I want to see a Netflix close above 413 on a weekly basis. If that happens, then what happens is that it then changes this, because this was a previous support and then it broke below this level, it would take out it would basically take out that level. That will show me that this trend is for real. But in terms of looking at the hourly chart, just to see what kind of levels we should be paying attention to. This is the last month's range. You can see that it had fallen way underneath last month's, but the earnings, after the earnings, it got back into last month's range. So right now, this is where we are. Now, this is the level I'm talking about, which is the 413. So this is an important level. If it's able to close above this level on a weekly basis, then I would basically say that this, maybe we're at the beginning of something. So I'm watching the 413 level. In terms of support, this is the first level I'm watching, which is around 391. 391, and then obviously last month's low 371. So I want to see how it resolved this range. So I'm looking at 391 on the downside and 413. So right now you can see it's been consolidating. I want to see how it resolves this range. If it closes above this level, then that will tell me that that would suggest that this stock is really looking bullish. On the other hand, if there is a consolidation and pullback, because it has gone up a lot from here to here, that's a big jump. So if it pulls back to something like this, and you might say that on an hourly basis this is a bull flag consolidation, this would be the level I'm watching. If it falls underneath that level, then I'd be like then the next level would be somewhere around here, and eventually 371.50 was last month's low, so it would be somewhere in between. But I'm looking for like a bullish bull flag. But if the bull flag goes underneath this level, then I would be like a little bit cautious. On the other hand, if it does something like this and takes out this level, then that would indicate to me that this has a lot more to the upside. So those would be the levels I'm watching. Let's see. Let's have a look at this one, Super Mario. Now, on a weekly basis, you can see that. This is a very important weekly level. You can see there was a rejection. There were lots of weekly candles. This is around 300, 288. So it wasn't able to close above 288. And then this week was obviously negative for it. It's no surprise. It was down over 12%. It closed just underneath the weekly 20. From a weekly perspective, it still looks a bit stretched because it had a big run up right here, and then it fell, and now if it does something like this on a weekly basis, that would be a lower high confirmation. But RSI is still above the 50 level. MACD is beginning to move lower, so that's telling me that the momentum is beginning to weaken. So let's look at some of the levels we should be paying attention to. So where is this MCI? It's right here. Okay. So this is the weekly range. So it had traded above the monthly high, and then it has now come back inside monthly range. you can see that it's now beginning to form this lower high even on an hourly basis. And then this is where we are, which means that if there is a rebound, I would expect a lower high either here or here. So what are those two levels? This level is 273 and this level is 288. So I would expect some kind of a lower high in one of those levels. On the other hand, if there is a pullback underneath this, this is the monthly low. This is basically what I'm looking at. So this level is 229. Underneath this, obviously, we have to look at other levels, but you can see that on an hourly basis, the structure is beginning to look like this. So that's the sort of structure, hourly structure that is putting in. So that's why if there's any rebound, I would expect some sort of a lower high. If it's able to overcome this level, then game on. Then obviously we have to consider the bullish side. But at least the way I'm seeing on an hourly basis, it's beginning to form lower high. So one of the lower highs could be either here, as I mentioned, around 288. The other one could be around 273. Those will be the two levels I will be watching for a possible lower high. And on the downside, obviously, this level. If it falls underneath this level, I'm going to come back with new levels, again. But these are the levels I'm watching next week. All right, I'll leave it at that. I thank you very much for watching the video.